I believe if Hamas ceases violence, ceases to target Israeli civilians, then everything is possible. But on the other hand, they can't shoot rockets at Israel, trying to kill our people, and at the same time demand that we have a normal relationship. Sorry, that doesn't work. If they want to move forward to a normal relationship, and we're ready to have a much more normal relationship, it has to be built on non-violence. And that's a commitment that Hamas is yet being ready to do. I hope they will accept it.
And just a moment ago, talking to Daniel Pipes, we talked about an announcement from one official in the Israeli government that it might be necessary for Israel to take control of Gaza, temporary control of Gaza, to demilitarize it. Again, that leads into the question of whether or not there's an over-reliance on power on the part of Israel. That apparently is the position of Ian Liderovich, who joins me now. Mr. Liderovich, welcome.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Now, is that position correct? Do you believe that maybe there's an over-reliance on the military aspect?
I don't necessarily believe there's an over-reliance on the military aspect. Rather, it's the manner in which the military is engaged in this operation. The specific type of firepower, the use of aerial bombardment, is not conducive to building relationships with local communities in the way that, for example, foot patrols or creating a sense of shared responsibility has been historically shown to be.
Well, I was temporarily, I don't know, it was just over a week, I think, that I was in Iraq down around the time that the military took down Fallujah. I saw the attempt with those soldiers with boots on the ground, not only to be a military force, but also to give candy to the kids and shake the hands of the citizenry around them, and to try to differentiate between we're here to fight an enemy and we don't consider the average citizen to be the enemy. And so is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's absolutely what I'm talking about. I think that the difficulty Israel's having right now is in creating a sense within Gaza of this is a battle between, us collectively and Hamas, as opposed to simply being a battle between Israel and Gaza collectively.
But do you think there are people within Gaza who would in fact somehow be willing to assist in disarming Hamas?
I think the question there is to say not only how are people in Gaza reacting to this, but regional actors, what are they willing to do to get involved in this? There have been some interesting proposals. For example, the involvement of Jordan, of Saudi Arabia, the use of Arab states to actually help in the disarming process and create a multinational force to do so. In terms of within Gaza, there are moderate elements there, and the degree to which these people are willing to support extremism really does come down to how much of a bedrock is being created by hostility towards Israel.
Well, what's the long-term goal here for Netanyahu, do you think?
Well, the question there is a political one. Right now, we've been hearing a lot about military targets and a lot about military objectives. However, the long-term goal really remains a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. When we speak of, for example, the seaport that has come on the table recently, this is an issue that would help Palestinians without necessarily helping Hamas specifically. So in the long term, what we would hope that Netanyahu acknowledges is, well, we can create a partnership with Palestinians to build a seaport, to create, Gaza as part of the international community, while also saying, listen, this is not happening in a vacuum. We cannot continue to deal with these rocket attacks and with these sort of militant elements. So we'll deal with you in a peaceful sense while also continuing to do a police action to remove these sorts of threats.
Well, clearly Hamas doesn't want a two-state solution. They want the eradication of the Jews. So is there enough of a population in Gaza that does not, in fact, adhere to Hamas in that way, who would be happy with a two-state solution and we leave each other alone?
Most polling data within not just the West Bank, but also within Gaza, demonstrates a serious commitment to a two-state solution in a broad sense. I think that when we look at the national reconciliation movement that was happening recently between Mahmoud Abbas and Fatah, and then also with Hamas, this is sort of a movement in that direction. How can we make sure there is a more moderate movement going on? But at the end of the day, it will be difficult to create this idea with Hamas being the way it is.
Well, it just seems as though in that part of the world, the elements that wish to get rid of the Jews, get rid of everybody who isn't going to adhere to some sort of extreme version of Islam, just keep coming? I mean, now we have this ISIS group, which, you know, you and I may not have heard of not so long ago. It seems an impossible goal to just deal with ordinary people because they are overwhelmed by all of these radicals.
Well, I mean, it's important. It's interesting you should mention ISIS in this context. There's a lot of difficulties we're facing. However, Iran's support for militia elements does not extend to ISIS. Actually, Iran does not support ISIS. And this is a state that has in the past talked about the destruction of Israel. You have movements in Egypt that are willing to support Israeli movements towards peace talks. You have this in the Gulf states as well. There are moderate elements that are throughout the Arab world working towards creating a sort of peaceful future. The difficulties come from when these people become radicalized. And the current head of ISIS actually was once caught by American forces in Fallujah in 2004. And they simply didn't know what to do with them. The problem here really is not having a proper counterinsurgency strategy. It's not to say these people cannot deal with us in a sort of constructive way, but how do we actually make sure that we're backing up those moderate elements so that way there is a proper counterinsurgency strategy for the long term?
Yeah, I wonder, though, if it gets difficult for someone like Netanyahu to think that there are people on the other side of that line he can do business with.
Well, I mean, there definitely is that problem, and this has been entrenched over years and years of conflict. So in that sense, it's easy to understand why these difficulties continue. Nonetheless, the principles of counterinsurgency, the principles of creating a political solution in the long term, the principle of dealing with the local community, of actually moving towards some sort of political solution so that way there isn't a reason for violence, do remain effective principles to stand by on. Nonetheless, we do have to acknowledge that Netanyahu is in a tight spot. I simply willing to say these difficulties have to be acknowledged and moved past, so we're not only talking about military targets, but rather a long-term political solution.
Ian, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.